I'm responsible for the Austrian National Bibliography, but I'm not going to talk about the bibliography itself today, but about online materials in Austria and how the National Library is dealing with it. What am I going to talk about? I will introduce the Austrian National Library very shortly. I will then give you an overview about the legal situation in Austria, and then go on with the two parts of the dealing with online publications at the National Library, that is to say the Web Archive Austria and Epubs, the Epubs project, and I will finish with some information on metadata. The Austrian National Library is the largest scientific library in Austria. It was entitled National Library in 1920, with a history dating back into the 14th century. There are about 350 employees at the moment, and the holdings are about 8 million objects. Now, the legal situation in Austria. The Austrian Media Act from 1981 included only printed works. There was an amendment in 2000 that included digital offline media such as DVD, CD-ROM, or diskette in the legal deposit legislation. The Austrian National Library recognized at that time that this is not sufficient and initiated a working group on another amendment to include also online materials in the year 2007, and succeeded insofar as there was another amendment in 2009 that mandates the Austrian National Library now to collect and archive online media as well. So, what are we doing with our right to collect online media now? We started web archiving in 2008. The project is called Web Archive Austria. The law gives us the right to make web harvesting 4 times a year, which we just cannot do because we don't have the resources. So we ended up in doing the web harvesting in a period of 2 years. Storage and backup is outsourced to the Austrian Federal Computing Center. Access to the web archive started in May 2010. Who does the web archiving and how is it done? There is a staff of only 2 full-time equivalent at the Department of the Digital Library. We use 8 crawlers and the software components. It's open source only. We use the crawler Heritrix, the crawl management Net Archive suite, and the access is via Wayback Machine. How are we doing the archiving? As you all know, there are different strategies for harvesting. You can do domain harvesting, you can do selective harvesting, you can do event harvesting. And the Austrian National Library does a combination of all 3. The domain harvesting started in 2009. we are harvesting top-level domains .at, and we are doing it in different steps. We harvest the smaller domains up to 10 megabytes. We make another step with 50 megabytes, and we end up with domains up to 100 megabytes. Bigger domains, bigger sites cannot be harvested by us. We do not only have the right to harvest top level at AT domains, but we can also harvest other sites related to Austria. So if we have the information about sites related to Austria, for example, cultural institutions or sites by Austrian researchers, artists that are not under the domain AT, we can also harvest them. As I already said, crawling, we do the crawling every 2 years, and we have just finished the second crawl. We will start the third crawl in the beginning of 2013. We also do selective harvesting. We started the selective harvesting in 2010. The problem is, of course, the highly dynamic, constantly changing sites, so that it would not be very interesting to do the harvesting only every other year. So we are building special collections. The one ongoing project is the media collection, where we, for example, we collect these special sites, the defined special sites, in special intervals. Newspapers are collected every day. We have a press center that we, the homepage of a press center that is collected several times a day. There are other media homepages we collect every week, so it depends on the content. We are starting now another collection, namely a literature collection, that should contain sites from Austrian authors and literature connected homepages. As I said before, the domain harvesting is restricted with 100 megabyte. For the selective harvested, it's not the size, but it depends on the level. So we harvest these sites up to level 4 to 7. And we are also doing event harvesting. We started in 2008. These are mostly temporary sites that will disappear after the event. Of course, we focus on Austrian topics. We have collections on Austrian and European elections in 2008, and also, for example, a collection from the football Euro 2008. For the event harvesting also, there is a level, we harvest up to the level 5 to 7. Access is only possible on site at the Austrian National Library, at 2 special terminals. But we have contracts with certain publishers, above all research institutions, that give us the right to make their resources accessible throughout the world. You can also, according to the law, there are also 20 other authorized libraries, National Archives, Parliament, state and university libraries, that would have the right to give their users access on-site to the online resources of the web archive. But up to now, there are only 3 libraries that are doing that. The web archive is open for everybody, not only for researchers, and access is restricted to reading and printing. Download and forwarding is prohibited. This is the one thing we are doing about online resources. And there's, of course, another thing. We have a lot of publications. We call this project Epubs, and it contains e-books, e-journals, and e-dissertations. The staff is also 2 full-time equivalents who work with a server and the repository software Digital. The strategies for Epubs, as I already said, is collecting e-books, e-journals, and electronic dissertations. We restrict it to e-only publications. That means if a publisher publishes a book in print and as e-book, we will not collect the e-book. We just don't have the resources to do so. How do we collect? Usually the information comes from the publisher, but we also have the right to inquire for the online resource. If it's not publicly accessible, the publisher has the duty to give us access to his online resources. As far as the electronic dissertations are concerned, we have contracts with libraries, at the moment with 3 different libraries that send out us their electronic dissertations. How are the e-publications collected? At the moment, still manually. That means that we get the information from the publisher and we collect it from his website, the resource. In the future, we are planning to do the collecting automatically, above all for e-journals and sites with constantly updated content. Our preferred format is PDF-A and XML. Now some information on the workflow. After the information by the publisher, the resource is identified and checked for e-only. Rights are defined. So we have to know, can we make it accessible on-site only, or can we allow access from outside too? Then the collecting starts, retrieval, decision on the document type, simple or complex, and the resource is stored on the server series. Then the first release follows. This work, these first steps, are done by the department Digital Services. Then, after that, the cataloging section is informed by email about the new resource. Descriptive cataloging is done in the library system Aleph, and a system number, the Aleph system number is assigned to the resource in Digital. Second release. Then the subject section is informed by an email, and they are doing the subject indexing, followed by the third release. After the third release, ingesting is done automatically in Digital. If we have time in the end, I can show you some screenshots from this workflow. Access to these e-publications is also on-site at the Austrian National Library, with consent of the publisher, also remote access. It's of course also open for everybody, and the access is restricted to reading and to printing. Now, how about metadata for these online resources? Basically, metadata, as we all know, provide data for description, organization, and exchange. In the case of digital objects, we do not only need descriptive data, but structural and administrative data is extremely important for access and management. At the Austrian National Library, we have different sets of metadata for the two different projects of online resources. For the web archive, we do not have descriptive metadata at all. We only have structural and administrative metadata. Structural metadata provides information on structure of digital objects. It defines relations of multiple part objects. At the Austrian National Library, METS is used. Administrative metadata contains technical, rights, preservation, and identification metadata. Technical metadata provides information on technical characteristics, formats, etc. of different objects. We use technical metadata, different metadata according to the format of the object. For example, images. For images, we use Z3987MIX. Rights metadata provides information, copyright, access rights, protection for a certain period of time, and so on. Here, the Austrian National Library uses a self-defined data model. Preservation metadata provides information on the necessary technical environment, hardware as well as software. For example, for electronic offline publication, the Austrian National Library uses Premise. Identification. This is persistent identifiers to ensure stable access. We will start to use URNs in the near future for our online resources. We have a completely different situation for metadata with Epubs. We have, of course, also structural metadata. We have administrative metadata. The technical metadata is automatically generated at the time of the ingest. We have the rights metadata. I already mentioned it when talking about the workflow. And we have identification metadata. A PID is generated at the time of ingesting. As I already said, the use of URN is planned also for e-publications. And for Epubs, we have, of course, descriptive metadata that is done in the course of cataloging by the staff of the Austrian National Library in Aleph. The map data are transferred from Aleph to digital and is stored in digital as Dublin Core qualified. At the end, what are our perspectives, plans, challenges? Of course, we have many dreams, but we have restricted resources. So what are the prospects? What can we realize? The problem with online resources is, of course, the highly dynamic character of websites, the retrievability. So very often we have to do it collect now, ask later. So we are archiving the web, and the access is, of course, the retrievability of the data in the web archive is not very good. You can only use look after the URL, or you can find a topic if the topic is part of the URL, then you will find the resource. But as I said, we have to collect now. We can deal with these problems later. A very concrete plan is to build more collections. As I already mentioned, we are just now starting a literature collection, and we will be soon starting a collection of Austrian libraries in and outside Austria. We are working on the automatization of collection for e-publications. And among many other plans is, for example, an engagement in the preservation of web archives. We are a partner institution of the project SCAPE. Another plan that cannot be realized in the near future is a one-stop shop for all digital resources. That's only some of our plans for the future. And I think I have some time left, so I would like to show you, as we are, our topic is bibliography, how the e-resources that are collected in the framework of Epubs will appear in the national bibliography. This is the Austrian National Bibliography Online. Here we have a publication, a journal. So it's listed in the bibliography, and we have a link here. And if the publisher gives us the right to allow also access worldwide, you can see this resource directly from the bibliography. So here you come to the website and to the publication. It is, of course, different with resources. With resources, you can only watch on-site. Here, this is an e-book, and you don't find a link here because you cannot access it from outside. Okay. Thank you very much for your attention.